So, what if the path to becoming a millionaire wasn't about slow, steady saving? What if it was about a radical, all consuming code? Today, we're deconstructing the blueprint of Hassan Haider. Now, this is a guy who claims he went from being a university dropout to a multimillionaire in just 3 years. We're going to break down his entire system to see what it's really all about. I mean, that's the claim right there. It just stops you in your tracks, doesn't it? It goes against pretty much everything we're taught about traditional success. So, how did he do it? Well, after digging into his playbook, we found that it all seems to boil down to three core principles. This is what he calls the millionaire mindset. Okay, so his first principle is basically a direct attack on conventional wisdom: radical action. Forget about your 5-year plans. Forget about careful, slow deliberation. This is all about pure, raw momentum. Prioritizing speed and just sheer volume over everything else. At the heart of this idea is Heider's argument that perfectionism is a total trap. He actually calls it fear in disguise. And the logic? It's pretty simple. Every single moment you spent polishing a plan is a moment you're not getting real, hard feedback from the actual market. His advice is to launch fast, launch imperfectly, and learn from what really happens, not from what you think is going to happen. So, how do you even generate that kind of speed? Well, Heider's controversial answer is the 16-hour workday. He argues this isn't just about grinding for the sake of it, it's a strategy. By creating this massive volume, more calls, more content, more attempts, you're essentially buying data. You're learning what works at a speed your competition just can't keep up with. And this right here illustrates his belief in what you might call nonlinear returns. He's arguing that the gap between putting in 80% effort and 100% effort, well, it isn't just an extra 20% in results. That final push, he claims, is where you create this huge, almost unbeatable advantage over everyone else. This whole philosophy really comes together in a tactic he calls forcing the pace. Basically, it's an active refusal to just sit around and wait. Whether that's triple messaging a prospect or calling a supplier after hours. The core idea is to get rid of all that dead time by making the next step happen yourself, instead of just passively waiting for it. But look, all that radical action is just chaos without some kind of direction. And that brings us to a second pillar: obsessive learning. For Haider, knowledge isn't something you just absorb passively. Nope, it's something you have to aggressively hunt down. He calls it one of the biggest cheat codes out there. He frames this whole thing as a powerful learning loop. You don't just learn theory for the sake of it. Step 1, you get a high-income skill. Step 2, you apply it immediately to make money. And then, step 3, you reinvest that money into getting more knowledge, like paying for high-level mentors, which just makes the whole cycle spin even faster. So what kind of skills is he talking about? He's super specific here. He focuses on things that are directly tied to bringing in revenue. Skills like sales, copywriting, marketing, and even hiring. These, he argues, are the non-negotiables for building wealth, because they're pretty much always in demand. This all leads to one of his crucial beliefs, that investing in knowledge by paying for expertise is priceless. Why? Because it's a shortcut, a massive one. You get to bypass years of painful trial and error. And that shortcut, he claims, is what creates this insane gap between you and literally everyone else who's trying to figure it all out on their own. Okay, but how do you sustain this crazy level of action and learning without just completely burning out? Well, that brings us to the final and maybe the most important pillar: unbreakable psychology. This is the internal framework that holds the entire system together. The absolute foundation of this psychology is extreme ownership. And his logic is blunt. The moment you start blaming someone else, you're powerless. You're just waiting for a Superman that isn't coming. But if you decide that everything is your fault, then suddenly you have all of power, because you're the only one who can fix it. And he pairs that really tough love principle with this incredibly powerful reframe, which was famously used by Conor McGregor: we either win or we learn. With a mindset like that, failure basically becomes impossible. Every mistake isn't a loss, it's just data. It's a lesson that makes your next try even stronger. So how do you actually do that in the real world? He suggests asking yourself one simple question whenever something negative happens: what can I learn from this? That simple little shift turns every bad thing into an immediate positive, like a piece of tuition for the school of life. And finally, none of this works unless you have a high tolerance for stress. Heider's view is that business is just a series of problems. In fact, he argues your income is directly proportional to the size of the problems you solve for people. So all that daily bullshit, that's not a distraction from the work. That is the work. So let's put this all together. We've deconstructed the 3 pillars of Hassan Hader's code. First, radical action, just moving with relentless speed. Second, obsessive learning, aggressively going out and getting skills. And third, unbreakable psychology, the mental toughness to handle it all. When you look at them together, these pillars form a complete, all-consuming philosophy for achieving rapid success. The core command is pretty simple, really. Move faster, learn faster, and be mentally tougher than everybody else. And so we're left with this, a blueprint for extreme intensity and exponential growth. It's a code that promises incredible results in record time. But in demanding 16-hour days, radical action, and total ownership, it also demands everything from you. Which leaves one final crucial question to consider. What is the true cost of living the code?